Hey guys, Luminostic here with a bit of a sad stream tonight. Although it's a little bit late, I guess it's better late than never. The other day, of course, anytime the subject of aliens comes up and I have to tell my contact experience, Golden Light Eagle was pretty central to all that stuff. He was part of a chain of synchronicities that, to say I'll never forget as long as I live, is putting it extremely mildly. That period of time has pretty much come to define my entire life. And Golden Light Eagle played a pretty significant role in it. He was a very interesting man. He was a Lakota Sioux Sundance chief, and his birth name's Loren Zephier. And I guess I'll tell you guys the story of how I met Golden Light Eagle. I don't have a ton of time tonight because I'm going to have a mushroom ceremony in a little bit, and a little bit stressed out tonight because it's a sad tale that I'm telling. Well, it's not. It's sad that the Golden Light Eagle died, but it's also sad that we had a pit bull that was rescued by one of the family members of the people that had it because it was starving and tied to a tree all the time, and they would leave town and leave it outside, and so he rescued it, but he couldn't feed it either, so it came over here. We nursed it back to health, and then as soon as we told them, the original owners, that we wanted to adopt the dog, the son-in-law just came and took it yesterday. He knew it was here for 3 months, and it wasn't until we expressed interest in actually adopting it that he came the next day and took it. So a little bit distracted by that, maybe. I think basically what they want is a ransom. I think they want us to pay us, and we don't have any money to bail this dog out. So So anyways, if I seem a bit distracted, there's multiple reasons for that at the moment. In fact, the dog was the one in the Chongo video that you might have just watched. Absolutely adorable. One of the prettiest pit bulls I've ever seen. Absolutely loyal and brilliant. Yeah. So Golden Light Eagle, you guys might know him from Ancient Aliens. If you watched that show, that was probably what he was most well known for. He had a silver bar that had characters scratched on it that he said were the language that one of the star tribes speaks. The star tribes are apparently aliens, but whether or not they are interdimensionals or actual physical aliens or projections of our future self or exactly what their nature is, I'm not sure. My own experiences did not make that clear. Golden Light Eagle did not make that clear. But basically, after a series of extraordinary coincidences that I've told these stories many times on the channel, but in case you're new, I'll tell them one more time. And so there was a lot. There was a whole bunch of them, whole bunch of them. But we'll start with the bear claws. Working one day, and the synchronicities had already started, though, like really heavily ramped up. The first one actually was that I had just started to get interested in Aleister Crowley, and I didn't speak to my brother for like 7 years at this point. And one day I get a Christmas card from him while I've just started really thinking about Crowley and reading one of his books, actually, book 4. And it's a picture of Crowley with a big red nose, and it says, "Do as thou wilt, so long as thou wilt have a Merry Christmas." So, that was strange, but not nearly as strange as when I called my brother a few days later, and we were on the same page of book 4, which is one of Aleister Crowley's books. And so, I haven't seen this kid at this point in like 15 years or something. And, well, he wasn't a kid at that point. He was a kid in my mind, because the last time I saw him, that's how old he was, I guess. But, so that was crazy. And then, it just kept going like that. I guess the next major incident that I can remember was, the bear claws. I got a call from my girlfriend saying that she had just seen 4 bear in the like by the driveway in this tree, and I put her on speakerphone when she called just because I was working, and I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm at work. And so I pulled the insulation down out of the awning, I guess, that I was tearing apart, and these 3 bear claw fell out. And so I was, of course, in denial. Like, there's no way these are bear claws. And my coworker walked over. He heard the phone call, and he looked at them, and he said, "Those sure as shit are bear claws. I just killed one last week." And sure enough, I'd eaten bear stew at his house a few days earlier. So, so this stuff was happening nearly every day. But then the first like really significant, well, the bear's a symbol of awakening. So all this stuff was significant. It all really came to define my life. Not that I wasn't already on that trajectory, but it really clarified things, I guess, this series of synchronicities. And so I was talking to my girlfriend at home one night. She was drawing on the floor, and she had a 24-inch ruler. And she asked me about the numerology of the number 11. And then she started getting frustrated because the ruler wasn't working for some reason. So she stopped, and her face, I saw her, just her expression go, limp, and her eyes widen. And I was like, what the hell is your problem? And she said, look at this. And there's 2 11s printed on the ruler. And one of them was where 23 should be, which is the number of synchronicity, aside from 1111, of course. You could think of 1111 as the glyph of synchronicity, but 23 is the number of synchronicity. There's lots of interesting numerology of the number 23. If you divide 2 by 3, it's 0.66666. 2 times 3 is 6. So backwards and forwards, it's the same. And there's actually a lot of really interesting numerical sequences where if you multiply or divide the numbers by double or half and then add them all together, they will all add up to the same number. So for 9, people know that multiples of 9 add up to 9, but if you divide it in half and add those and just keep dividing the numbers, it always adds up to 9. But anyways, I'm making another video about all that stuff and the relevance of it to the rest of the universe soon, so keep your eyes out for that. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. I'm demonetized. I get nothing for my efforts unless the community supports me, so I really do appreciate it. There are options in the chat that you can support us. And don't worry if you've heard these stories before on this channel. There is at least a few new ones coming, but the backstory is important for Golden Light Eagle. So this ruler has 1111 on it, and I had never heard of 1111 at this point. It's like 2010. I hadn't really used the internet much. Definitely had never heard of Facebook. I just didn't really use the internet. I didn't have a smartphone. I was definitely behind the times, but I had never heard of 1111. In fact, it was another year when I mentioned it to my then wife that she said, "Oh yeah, that's a thing, 1111, make a wish." And so I had no idea what it was. And so I guess maybe 2 weeks or so after that, my roommate got an email from Golden Light Eagle, and I don't know how this all transpired. He was kind of an odd guy. Like we didn't talk about everything. He was very reclusive. He had a lot of guns. Kind of weird. Before it was all over with, he'd actually decided I was the Antichrist and had told me that he was going to pick me off from the mesa by the house because there was just too much weird stuff going on around me. It had really wigged out everyone. My mother, my best friend. It had freaked out everyone around me. And so, Zach, is it okay that I say his name? Zach? That was definitely the guy's name. So Zach gets this email somehow, and he brings me into his room, and it's a link to a video. And Golden Light Eagle is saying, we're calling all of the members of all these tribes from the 4 corners of the earth to come to 4 Corners area. Made sense, I guess. In Farmington, New Mexico, to this hotel. And with this storm of weirdness going on, of course, I'm not going to say no to this invitation from this Lakota Sioux Sundance chief. And by the way, if you don't know what a Sundance is, it's basically when you put hooks through your chest and dance around a pole for 3 days in the sun. It is a very sacred ceremony that is performed by the Lakota Sioux. I'm not sure if other tribes do it, but I know for certain that they do. And so, so Lakota Sundance chief, and on the way there, the first really strange thing happened. Basically, by the time I was done with this group of people, I would no longer doubt the lesser used capacities of consciousness that we all possess. But before Golden Light Eagle hung up, he said, "Hey, bring your little friend with you." And I didn't know who he was talking about, of course, but as soon as I hung up, the phone rang again. And yeah, it was an actual landline phone. I'm doing this because that's how it was. And so the phone rang, and it was this Navajo girl, this Dene girl that I knew. And it's not like we hung out or anything. And I just knew. I was like, okay, the Native American guy says, bring your friend. The Native American girl calls, only one you know, got to be talking about her. I would eventually see some pretty mind-blowing native magic with her too. One day I was thinking things she didn't like. My mind had gone to like, it wasn't anything like, bad, but it wasn't where my head was supposed to be. And she said, "Why don't you go look out in the backyard?" And I went out and opened my sliding glass door, and there were just all these animals standing there, like all the neighbors' horses, a bunch of birds had landed around everywhere, like maybe an elk too or something, just all staring at the back door. And I know she did it. I mean, there's no question. That was the point. So we go to pick her up. Of course, we don't even have to go out of the way to get her. We just pull over to the side of the road. She gets in the car. We keep going right on the highway. And so I get there, pull up, get out of the car, and this guy's walking by me, and we lock eyes, and there's like this charge of electricity that shoots back and forth. And he goes, "I haven't seen you in 40,000 years, man." And I'm like, "What?" And he grabs me, and he's like, "Come on, we got to get to the ceremony." And I'm like, "Ceremony? What the hell's going on?" And he brings me around to the back of the building, and there's this Hawaiian shaman. It turns out to be Reynolds Kamakawi'ole, I think is how you pronounce his name. I've never been sure. You can find him online. His cousin was the "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," that Hawaiian guy that did that song, and unfortunately passed away. The relative of his. And he's doing this thing with the circle, basically, where he's like, "May the wind blow to confirm the power of our prayer." And the timing of it, I noticed when I walked into the circle, it was just closing. Like, I mean, you had to be there, but the perfection of my arrival and the closing of the circle, and just the way everything flowed as soon as I got into that area, was just absolutely ridiculous. And then he says, "May the wind blow to confirm the power of my prayers." And the wind blew so hard that little rocks went blowing across the pavement. And everyone was seriously freaked out. I was the most, out there person in this group. They were mostly like, there was like a school teacher. And the story was basically that we all had some important part to play in building this rainbow bridge, that I'm still not 100% clear about. I posted in my community chat a video where, Golden Light Eagle talks about the Rainbow Bridge, and that's apparently why we were all somehow randomly contacted. And, I was only taking a lot of this half seriously until the guy called the wind and it actually blew, because, of course, the obvious question is, if somebody can call the wind, are they full of shit? Is there any chance of that? And it didn't seem to add up to me, so they kind of had my ear at that point. There was a lot of odd circumstances. There was a native man that was being walked. They walked him, kind of like helping him. I think he was kind of drunk, past where I was sitting on the wall. And he came over and sat next to me, and he started telling me that he had murdered all these children in Iraq. He was a soldier, and he was super alcoholic and all this stuff. And to this day, I have no idea why I said this. But I just looked at him and I said, "I'll see you 4 times over the course of this weekend. And the 4th time, I'll tell you something that will cure your alcoholism." And I did see him 4 times, and I don't know what I said to him the first 3 times. I don't remember. But the 4th time, I didn't know what to say, and I went to my car and got an acoustic guitar and played him a song, and he took an unopened bottle out of his pocket and took the cap off and poured it out. And then Golden Light Eagle and this other gentleman gave him a room for the night. And in the morning we all ate breakfast, and he said it was the first time he had been sober in 20 years or something, 15 years. And that's the way the whole goddamn weekend went. But so after this incident with the Native American guy, we go in to hear Golden Light Eagle speak, and Golden Light Eagle is talking about how he encountered in the desert these Star Tribe people, and he was saying that there are various ancient peoples around the earth, a lot of them, the Babylonians and Syrians, everyone suspects that, right? The Egyptians, the Chaldeans, all of these Middle Eastern. I'm sure personally myself that the Hebrews made contact with ETs. If you read the Bible as if you don't know what it's supposed to be, all of the interactions with Yahweh or whatever you want to call it, sound like an alien encounter. You know, it knows about diseases and bacteria. It's telling them to stay away from people with sores. It flies around in a metal tent, which sounds like a primitive description of a UFO. If you make it mad, you have to stand behind the tent and it burns you alive. Only one person can see its face because it doesn't want the tribe to know that it's not God and it's actually just an alien. So only Moses can interface with this thing. And it floats around above the ground, flying and blows up enemy tribes apparently with guns, I guess. I don't know, but that's all described in, I think, Exodus. And also follow the smoke trails during the day and the flames at night, which sounds like what, a combustion engine? So, or a jet engine. I mean, pretty compelling evidence that this was an alien contact and not actually God. I would hope it's not God, considering some of the stuff that it did. And, Moses, if you read Leviticus 25 or Leviticus 25 or Numbers 31, pretty disturbing stuff in there. To think that that's God is pretty alarming. Or even that Moses was a prophet of that God would be pretty alarming. So anyways, that seems to be a documentation of that. There were descendants of the Aztec and other South American indigenous there that had stories about these portals in Peru. And, so the message basically was that these indigenous people had come together to tell us that there were these star people and that some people are in telepathic communion with these star tribe individuals. Some of us are avatars for intelligences in Sirius and whatnot. I personally have had some really, really interesting experiences with that in the past. The ayahuasca, I can't remember the name of the videos, like ayahuasca and telepathy, or ayahuasca and telepathy with an alien from Sirius or something. But yeah, so that was the theme of this conference. And so also there was a condition that Light Eagle said that the Native Americans did not want them to talk to outsiders about this, and so he had been kind of black sheeped, and it had cost him Enrica. No. Cash App is like the money sign with the luminostic. It's there in orange in the chat. Money sign luminostic. Yeah, I really do appreciate support, you guys. I think we're about to get blackmailed to get our dog back, and pit bulls are actually really expensive and rare here, so it could be a gnarly price tag. And technically, it's their property, so we don't really have any ground to stand on, even though we had the dog for the last 3 months and they knew where it was and just didn't care until we actually said that we wanted it, which is I just don't want to talk about it. So where was I? So the Star Tribe thing is supposed to be kept on the DL. The Native Americans do not want white people to know, or outsiders, I guess not just white people, Africans either, anyone that's not Native American. Although, the Dogon have some really convincing stories about contact with star people. In fact, they have a star chart, and they've had it since at least the 1950s, that we have just seen those places. Tell us how much to send? Millions of dollars. I don't know. I mean, at worst, I would think it could be $500 to get the dog back. Yeah. And we have an expensive camera getting repaired in Quito, and I'm about to go to Egypt and all this stuff. So we're just really buried in terms of also having to pay for a dog hostage. So yeah, we really do appreciate the support. But yeah, the Dogon, they claim to have received cannabis from Sirius again. Sirius, the blue star is Sirius, the blue star prophecy of the Hopis, the blue star in the Masonic lodges. The Sequoia claim to talk to beings from Sirius when they drink ayahuasca. It happened to me one time, and I actually got accurate information about another star system that I was able to verify. And I talked about it when I received it in front of witnesses that were there when I looked it up a week later. So I did all this in front of people, lots of them. There were like 10 witnesses to the when it happened during the ayahuasca ceremony. I talked about it, and then 2 or 3 of those people were present when I looked it up later, a week later. And I don't know anything about astrophysics, so the fact that it was all correct is completely mind blowing. And then when I found out that Sequoia also supposedly communicate with Syrian intelligence when they drink ayahuasca, that really was, just too much. But anyways, there's this theme of this, and it's always serious. But the Dogons, they had an accurate star system that we didn't map until we had Hubble. And I think there was another circumstance that was weird. Oh, they had the word Merkabah, which also means chariot of light in Hebrew, that doesn't make any sense. And of course, if you're going to zip around the universe, chances are pretty good that you would do it in the form of light so that you could, if you're going at light, time stops. And I mean, it would be like teleporting, except that time would actually pass on your home planet. So that would be unfortunate. But at any rate, so, I've done a lot of research on this in the past. I try to be skeptical, but having already experienced these really preposterous experiences with these guys, like as soon as I got there, it kind of compelled me to take them a little bit more seriously, but it only got weirder. Let's see what was next. So Golden Light Eagle's giving his speech, and he says, really, the 1111 frequencies are the most important thing. And he starts going on about what synchronicity is and, what 1111 is all about. And that was my first introduction. And remember, though, we had found this ruler while talking about the number 11 with 2 11s on it a week before Golden Light Eagle invites us to this conference. So that really, of course, hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm sure my jaw just about fell off of my face at that point. So after Golden Light Eagle is done with his speech, which was absolutely great, to be perfectly honest, sometimes when Golden Light Eagle talks, he would kind of just ramble and it barely made any sense. And he wasn't always a great speaker. I think he got uncomfortable, and when that happened, he kind of shut down. But when he was on, he was sort of like this Native American laughing Buddha, like really, really funny. And he had a very thick Lakota accent. So he almost talked like a 1950s, movies Native American kind of, like the whole like classic Native American accent thing, but with like this psychedelic Buddha twist, which was just perfect for his message that he was delivering. And so I go outside, and I may have still smoked back then. I'm not really sure if I'd quit yet. No, I hadn't quit yet. So I probably went out to smoke. So I walked over by the river, and I had this intuition, like, you need to take off your clothes and get in the river and dunk your body 3 times, which I found out later is a baptism, right? But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know it. I just, suddenly there's a voice in my head, and I'm like, oh, great, that's not a good sign. And it's like, please just trust me. Just take off your clothes. No one will see you, and dunk yourself in the water 3 times. And I thought, you know what? With all this stuff going on, a dunk in some ice cold water, it was Colorado mountains or New Mexico mountains, probably do me some good. And so I do it. And then I look in the water, and there's literally a plastic square floating there that says, "Thank you. It's been a pleasure to serve you." And I'm like, what the fuck? So I grab the sign. I guess I don't know if it was from a bag, and the bag ripped or something. Maybe it was just the front part of the bag or something. And I walked in the parking lot and just handed it to the first person I saw. And then I went inside, and I was walking along, and all of a sudden I'm on my knees, and I'm overwhelmed with this feeling of love and gratitude, which I recognized instantly. I was like, this is how people act when there's like one of those gurus around, And I look around, and everyone else is in the same position on their knees, like staring ahead. And I look, and there's this girl who I would later find out is called Grandma Chandra. And Grandma Chandra, at first glance, it appears that she is a disabled girl who is being exploited by her insane mother, who claims that she is like an incarnated master that has, I can't remember if it's ALS but she can't talk and she can't walk. She's, like totally disabled. And so that's what you would think. But after interacting with this group for a few minutes, I wasn't so sure anymore. And so when I look at her, when she talks, she either grabs her mom or she grabs this guy, I don't know who he is, with long blonde hair, and they talk on her behalf. And before I'd left the house, I picked up this book by Timothy Leary called "If You're a God, Act Like One." I don't know where it came from even. It was just sitting on my counter. As I was leaving, I picked it up just because I didn't know what it was doing there or what it was. So I picked it up and looked at it. You're a god, act like one. So I look up at Grandma Chandra. She grabs her mom, and her mom goes, "You're a god, act like one." And that book flashed into my head from right when I left the house. And I'm like, whoa, man. And she starts going off on me. And what I noticed is that Grandma Chandra's facial expressions exactly matched what her mom was saying. And I mean, it was insane. And so she's like chastising me, like, you know, you and I are brother and sister. We've been working on this since the beginning of time. You know, like just all this shit about the eon changing, and you know, this is such a crucial time, and you need to get over your insecurities, stop reading all these goddamn books, and just tap directly into the source. And I'm like, oh man, what is this? You know, and I'm like almost bawling just from being in the presence of this little girl. It was just, there are no words for how insane and absurd this was. And so that scene eventually wraps up. She gets done berating me, and there was a whole bunch more talks and just all this weirdness going on. At one point, I was given a rock that was supposedly from Sirius B by somebody that was there. They had one for me and each of the other people that were supposed to be bridge builders, I guess. And there's actually pictures of it in a video, probably called Danny Carey and a rock from the Pleiades, because before the story was over, I ended up actually tossing it to Danny Carey from Tool, just because I had it in my pocket when I met him, and I'm like, check this out. What the fuck do you think of that? Because I knew he was into rocks. He didn't know. So yeah, I get this like space rock that I ended up taking to the college, and the geologist didn't know what it was. And then they said, take it down to a laboratory in Bodo Park. And I told the scientist at the laboratory the story, and he said, well, I'm going to put a drop of glass on it. And if the rock doesn't melt, then it probably is from another star system. Because you guys go look at it. I mean, you'll see, like, there's no rock that looks like this. It doesn't make any sense. He's like, it has to be glass. Otherwise, this is true. And he puts the drop of acid on it, and nothing happens. And he stares at it for a second, and he looks at me with his eyes all bugged out and his jaw hanging open. And I'm like, what is actually fucking happening right now? So we walk out in the parking lot, and this guy's face he's like awestruck, and he looks up at the sky and he's like, so tell me what happened again. And I try to explain it to him, and then I leave and I see a Homeland Security office. So I think, well, that's the obvious next step. So I go over to Homeland Security and ring the doorbell, and the guy opens the door, and I'm like, look at this. And here's the story. And he says, well, I'm not going to try to tell you that there are no aliens on this planet. That would be stupid, but you're at the wrong department. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you're at the wrong department. We don't deal with space aliens. We deal with like terrorists and like other types of aliens, but not space aliens. And I was like, can I come in? And he's like, no. I was like, all right. So anyways, back to the main story here. I tell the entirety of that story in the video. So I get the space rock, and of course, I'm thinking this is complete bullshit, right? Because who is going to have a rock from another star system and just give it to someone for free? You know what I mean? It makes no sense. But after I took it to the geology department, to 3 different professors, and then to a laboratory, and that happened, and actually a Native American is safekeeping that rock, a shaman, hey, Missy, called Black Horse, or is it Night Horse? Black Horse, I think I was in jail with in Durango, Colorado once, and Night Horse is the shaman or the medicine man. That's an insane story too, but I don't have time to tell all these like side stories. We have to kind of stay tracked. But yeah, Night Horse, that's his name. It's in the safekeeping of Night Horse. Hopefully, he hasn't done anything with it. And then the singer in my band at the time actually has another specimen. I can't believe we haven't done anything to really pursue to find out what the fuck these things are. So where are we at in the story? Okay, so our Grandma Chandra thing happened. So we go through all this other crazy shit throughout the day. And at the end of the night, I realized that I have to drive back to Durango, which is like 45 minutes. And I don't have money to rent a hotel room because I wasn't planning to stay. I haven't had a bank account like ever in my life probably. And I had like $3 in cash. And so I'm like sitting in the lobby thinking, well, what am I going to do? Should I just go home? And then I hear Golden Light Eagle's head, clear as day, or voice in my head say, go up to room 331 and just sleep in there tonight. And I was like, I am not playing along anymore. voices in my head. I'm not doing things because of voice in my head. And he's like, what's it going to hurt to go check? And I was like, all right, fine. So I went up to room 331, walked down the hallway, and the doors open a crack. So I push the door open, and I look in, and there's oil of abromelon, I guess. I mean, some kind of ceremonial oil, obviously, and leaves that have been broken up and scattered everywhere. And, you know, I've studied shamanism since I was a little kid. I know what's gone on in here. It's some Native American cleansing ritual. And so, you know, it's supposed to be Golden Light Eagle's room. I have no idea where he is. You know what I mean? I didn't talk to him after the conference. No contact. He was nowhere to be seen. So this voice in my head that told me all this was absolutely correct. There was probably like, you know, literally, I mean, it was like a, you know, 15 floor, huge, massive corporate like Marriott or something. So all those rooms in there on the 3rd floor. And you guys, you got to understand, I'm leaving out like so much stuff in the interest of time. This shit was constant. So I go in there and I'm like looking around and thinking it's got to be Golden Light Eagle's room. So I open up the TV stand area, and there's Golden Light Eagle's necklace with his like Aztec friend's necklace, which was like this big, we call it, it's this really chewy, big fat corn, the original corn, maíz. There's a name that they use for it here. You roll it in mayonnaise and cheese. It's really good. Anyways, that stuff blown up real big, like puffed in this necklace, and Golden Light Eagle's necklace. So for sure I'm in the right room. A few days before I left, I had this bootleg copy of one of Aleister Crowley's books that had a blank page, right? And I took a big hit of DMT and I looked at the blank page, and this symbol filled in like red, almost looked like laser, super intricate. It was absolutely incredible looking. I was like, that's some kind of Stargate or something. And then when I'm looking in the armoire or TV stand or whatever the hell it is, this thing with doors and a TV in it, there's a stack of cards with silk covers. And so I pull the silk back, and there's the symbol that formed when I hit the DMT in that book on the blank page. So, you know, at this point I'm just going like, man, shit is getting deep. The rabbit hole is getting deep. So I go out to the window. My girlfriend was out in the car thinking we're going to go home. And I was like, hey, come inside, come up to 331. She goes up to 331. I tell her what happened. And we look at the bed, and the corner of the blankets is even pulled back as if to say like, go ahead and lay down. So I'm thinking at first, like, for sure we're going to get in that bed and somebody's going to come back to this room and be like, what in the fuck are you doing here? But then at the same time, I kind of knew at this point that wasn't true. So we laid down in the bed and went to sleep. No one ever came. Woke up in the morning, went down to breakfast. And this is the next time I see Golden Light Eagle. And I guess my girlfriend beat me downstairs somehow. And she's sitting with the Native American guy that I played the song for that poured out the alcohol. And that's when I found out that they had given him a room and that he had, you know, it was the first time he'd been sober in 15 years and all that. We bought him some breakfast. My girlfriend gave him a necklace. And then Golden Light Eagle comes up to me and puts his hand on my shoulder and looks at me and he's like, how'd you sleep last night? I was like, I think you know that I slept fine, Eagle. Thank you. And he's like, okay. So there was another day of talks, and over the years, I kind of kept in touch with him a little bit, and he was actually going to do my wedding long time ago. Not with that girl anymore, but we had a wedding in Silverton, Colorado, and it was up in the peaks of the mountains, really beautiful setting, and Golden Light Eagle was supposed to marry us, and we asked him what he wanted as payment, and he said, well, 50 cents a mile and 12 elk teeth. So we got him the elk teeth, and we're sitting around that morning, and no eagle, no eagle, no eagle, no eagle. So finally I call him, and I'm like, Eagle, where are you? And he says, very, very sad. I felt really terrible when I found out later what happened. He said there's been a death in the family. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And so we had to scramble to get someone to marry us. and it was just so happened that there was a licensed Luciferian priest there, the priestess actually, and we ended up doing the ceremony with this like all these yuppies, you know, her parents were rich as hell, and all of their friends were rich, and so they were all these yuppies in this mountaintop peaks with this Luciferian casting a circle, and it was just, you know, and it's crazy that the universe arranged it so that if, you know, Eagle couldn't be there, the next best thing was there. For the circumstances. And unfortunately, it did turn out that it was his son that had passed. So it's always sad when somebody's son or child precedes them in death. But, you know, hopefully they're together now. And Eagle got to see his son again. And so that's okay, there's one other thing actually that we got to get this to 11 viewers and 11 likes. No one hit the like button. I'll never say that again, but I mean, do hit the like button. I'm just kidding. It's fine to hit the like button. I like you hitting the like button. Subscribe to, and also send support. We're about to get blackmailed, so I'm going to need it. What am I talking about? Okay, so I don't watch TV. Ever. Never, ever, ever. Even when I was a little kid, we didn't have a TV in our house. I never watched cable. You know, my whole life, people talk about like movies that think everyone's seen, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know who that is, you know, stars and stuff, and they're always shocked. It's just so weird to me. You know, who cares about Adam Sandler or whoever it was that was famous at the time? I just do not understand why anyone consumes mainstream entertainment. It just is so banal and vapid to me. I mean, I'm sorry if it's your thing, but I just can't stand it. So at any rate, you know, if anything, I might watch a documentary on the Discovery Channel every once in a while or something. But so I turned on the TV. Maybe this was like maybe a year or two after I met Eagle, and there's Golden Light Eagle holding a bar that he's saying has the characters of the star tribes etched into it. So after I think that was between the wedding and the last time I had seen him. The next time I saw him, he's on Ancient Aliens, telling the story, or at least part of it that he had told us at the conference. I feel like there was another pretty essential bit of weirdness that went on at that event one thing that I recall that is extremely crazy and has to do with 11/11, and it involves the band Tool again, which is weird, this theme of that. But I was fasting for 4 days and 4 nights, and also no sleep for 4 days and 4 nights when I arrived there. So it was the second night, or the third. It was the midpoint. And I go in, and I thought, you know what? I'm done, man. I'm going to eat some chips or something. And somebody had put out of service signs on the vending machines, and I thought it was legit, right? And so I go up to the next floor, and they're also out of order. And the next floor, they're out of order. And I was like, huh. So I gave up. Later, I mentioned it to this guy's a poet that lives off grid in Minnesota or something. His hair is always sticking up everywhere. Last time I saw him on a documentary, his hair was sticking up everywhere too. I guess it's always like that. And he had the Native American guy with him that I ended up, you know, talking out of drinking. And it's the same guy, and he's walking by, and for some reason I told him about the vending machines, and he said, oh yeah, Grandma Chandra told us to put those signs up. I swear to God, it's because she knew she had to stop me from eating. It was just so weird, you know, like why in the hell? So I managed to get a hold of an orange, and I was in the fetal position eating it at one point, like towards the end. And there were all these circumstances that reminded me of actually the song that I used in the background of the Chonga video I just posted, Rosetta Stone by Tool. And the song is about smoking DMT and encountering these aliens, and it starts out with these Native Americans chanting, so the theme of Native Americans is there in the track before. And the story was really similar to my own, and it was really eerie. But of course, I didn't have any like schizophrenic ideas about it having been written about me. It wasn't that bad, but I just noticed there was like these weird, eerie similarities all throughout the song. So about a year later, I pick up the Tool CD and I turn it over, and that song is 11 minutes and 11 seconds long. And yeah, so, and you guys know that this stuff still happens. It still happens. I've even managed to record it on my channel. That video should be famous for this, because I don't know if anyone else ever having recorded something like this. I recorded the video in 4 different places over the course of several weeks, and out of order. The sequences were out of order. So after all the editing was done and it was published, or it was being published, I was looking for a place to put a card, because I knew I had mentioned that even thinking about 11:11 can provoke these synchronicities to happen. And that's literally what I said. Even thinking about 11:11 can cause this to occur. And I'm searching through the 31-minute video looking for where I said that. And finally it occurred to me, click on 11:11. And I click on 11:11 and I'm like, 11:11? I'm like, no way, click it again, 11:11, and it's perfect. So that video, I think, is called The Phoenix Process. I think I pinned it. And then a few minutes after that, I say something about a meditation where you freeze the image in your mind and hold it still. And at like 23 minutes or 26 minutes, can't remember which, I say that and my face freezes. And there's a couple of other incidents, I think, involving 11:11 that have randomly occurred on my videos. In fact, if we get one more viewer, we'll have another before I sign out, because I do have to go. I promised them that I would be done by 8 o'clock so that we can go out and drink mushrooms. So RIP to Golden Light Eagle. Really wild. It's suspected that it was actually his second poke that did it. Apparently he died suddenly right after that. So that really surprises me. I wouldn't imagine that he would have done that, but that's what the rumor is. Actually, there you go, 11:11 for Golden Light Eagle. So I'm going to sign out on that note. Man, see you guys.